Hello friends, John the Board Game Chap here, welcoming you to a new little segment stroke series of mine where I'm going to be pitting two games against each other. The games have got to share some sort of strong similarity, whether it's through gameplay, mechanisms, themes, or whatever. Today's focus is going to be two cooperative dice games. We have Bravest Warriors and Elder Sign. Today we're going to have a little look at Bravest Warriors, and next time I'll have a little ganders at Elder Sign and then sort of compare the two. So anyways, without further ado, let's have a little look at today's game. Bravest Warriors is a game from Cryptozoic. It is based off of one episode from Pendleton Ward's Bravest Warriors series. This is a show that I know nothing about, but it is from the creative mind that brought you the superb Adventure Time. In it, you're going to be rolling a bunch of these dice, trying to complete these encounter cards. If you succeed, you earn some victory points. To win the game, you've got to get to a certain amount of victory points. However, if any of the conditions where all of your characters get knocked out, you exhaust the portal deck, or you fail 5 missions, you are automatically shamed into defeatsies. To begin the game, everybody starts off playing as all of the characters. You're kind of like a hive mind collection there. You get a hand of these portal cards, which I'll explain in a bit, and then you draw something from the encounter deck to face your mission for that round. And depending on the mode you play, easy mode, you just draw an event card from the top. In the standard mode, everybody gets 2 of them into their hand, and you can kind of draft extra events on your turn. So generally all of these cards are like really bad, about 80% of them, so you might want to play extra event cards on the easy encounters in the hopes that you can get a supply of beneficial event cards later in the game if and when you take on a tough challenge. So the round revolves around these encounters. You draw them, and here we've got a tear sucker, which reminds me of an old ex-girlfriend. Anyway, on it, it has a number telling you how many points it's worth if you succeed, the conditions of the dice symbols you need to roll in order to pass, and a punishment text there telling you what's going to happen if you fail. Normally you would draw the event cards, but I'm not going to in this example. Normally, again, they're just punishments saying discard some portal cards, don't use an ability, or you need to roll an extra symbol. Anyway, the team takes all the dice and we roll them. Okay, and then we start allocating them where we can onto the card. So I might have those symbols there, that one, and the impossible, but we're missing a cat bug. So what can I do to try and get it? Well, this is when we start spending the unallocated dice to help us. We might be able to use a character ability like Chris. He allows you to roll one of the die again, provided you spend a couple of these little green bumblebee cards. Or the main focus are these portal cards. These are what you're going to be using in order to manipulate the dice in your favour. They might allow you to re-roll a certain die type. They might allow you to spend any unallocated die to re-roll the rest of them. They might be really nice and just gift you a symbol that you need. Or you can transmute the dice. They might say, just spend any 3 of any unused dice and it's going to turn it into another symbol. That is it. You just try and manipulate them to try to succeed. If you pass, happy days, you add it to your score pile. If you fail though, you just carry out what it is on the text. Normally it's a case of damaging your characters, hurting them in some way, discarding portal cards, or not being able to use certain abilities, or the most joyful of joys, having to redo an encounter that you may have already passed at. If any of your heroes get knocked out, you just flip them over because you're not allowed to use their special ability anymore for the rest of the game. At the end of a turn, you just redraw back up to your hand size of portal cards, and then you just draw another encounter, and you keep repeating that process until you either meet the winning or any of the losing criteria. And there you have it, that's Bravest Warriors. It's pretty straightforward, it's none too taxing on the old noggin there. I mean, you just roll the dice and you just solve the little puzzles there as best you can if you don't roll perfectly for each encounter. I actually find the easy mode a bit more challenging than the standard mode, because yes, you've got a smaller points total to get to, but it all kind of comes down to those event cards. In the standard mode, you can kind of use the events to your advantage in your hand, try and build up a supply of beneficial events to save for the toughest encounters, whereas in the easy mode you just draw from the pile and you just really hope that if a really hard encounter appears, you don't get a really bad event, which more often than not you tend to do. I have here in my hand a document containing all of the outstanding features that this game possesses. Only I'm not going to tell you about them now. I'm going to start with what I disliked about the game, leave you guys stewing in anticipation at what makes this game so wonderful. Problem number one is the easy potential for an alpha gamer to take control of the reins. You see, once the dice have been rolled, then they can just assume control of solving the puzzle. They're going to be like, right, let's use those dice for that, let's allocate these dice to go onto this portal, let's activate that character's abilities, and kind of boss others around. And it can leave the passive players not a lot to do in the whole game other than just occasionally rolling dice. For my second criticism, I'm going to use the example of cake to try and drive my point. And that is to say that many great designers and publishers have a range of delicious looking treats on offer, whether it's chocolate cake or cheesecake or struggling to think of different cakes because I'm allergic to them. But anyway, my point is that they have a range of delicious treats on offer to suit different tastes. With Cryptozoic though, a lot of their games I find are pretty simple, so their cakes are just kind of the ingredients of a cake. They tend to appeal to kind of like casual gamers because their games aren't particularly complex. So for the analogy of the cake with Cryptozoic, they just kind of present the ingredients. They take mechanisms from over here and there, just try to mesh them together. They try to offer a range of things as well. You've got 30 different encounter cards. However, they filter down to pretty much just a range of 4 different ideas. The same with the event cards. They're just small little tweaks, but just the ideas are repeated over and over again. And for me, that kind of comes down to with maybe like a problem with the design just being a bit dull and, dare I say, a little bit lazy, because the design just doesn't offer the potential avenues to make a varied, nuanced game that's full of depth. The depth is just nowhere. The third drawback that I have with this game, and I find I tend to have this problem with a number of Cryptozoic games, is that when I play one of their games, I'm just kind of going through the motions. I'm kind of doing the same things over and over again in a cyclical way, which can be fine, but there isn't anything new. You don't discover any new little nuances along the way. You just kind of do the same thing, and it just leaves you a little bit jaded, a little bit disconnected and pretty bored, so there's no replayability factor there. I also find that their themes don't really marry up with the game's mechanics at all, so I don't get lost in this world of Bravest Warriors. All I see is just rolling some dice and trying to match up some pictures. So on a whole, it's left me pretty hollow. I mean, I can't even crowbar in any humour, it's just left me that disconnected. The fourth issue that I have with this game is to do with the player count, and that the game barely changes depending on the number of people participating. One benefit is that they did take into account the idea of waiting for turns by making sure that the game is pretty much solely simultaneous play, so you don't ever have to sit around waiting. The issue though is that with more people that you play, you're going to have that issue again of the alpha gamer. The more passive players they're going to be, the more of you that are just going to sit around feeling that you're not really doing much. Also, the problem with a higher player count is to do with the dice pool. The dice pool does not change. You play with 12 dice at all times. So that means you might introduce this game to friends and there's 6 of you all excited and you open it up and you get the dice and you look at the dice and you're like, oh, how many dice do I get to roll? 2. That and the fact playing with 5 doesn't go into 12, it's not divisible, so a couple of schmucks of you are going to have to roll fewer dice than everybody else, and it's just immediately just doesn't feel fair. So, playing this game is probably best at 2 or 3. Any more than that and you're going to be pretty passive for about 45 minutes, twiddling your thumbs occasionally, rolling some dice. Also, if you're playing on your own, it is pretty dull. I mean, there are many better solo games out there than this. The components themselves are quite nice, the dice roll well, although the pictures printed on the dice can be a little bit askew. Oh well. And for some reason you're rolling animals. I don't really know why. I don't know the context of the show there, so that may be my fault, but yeah. And now, it's that moment you have all been waiting for. What do we have in this document? Oh, what wonders do we behold? Oh, I do not think we can beseech such power. Oh, oh. All it says is show card. It's quite funny, that is. It kind of sums the game up in a more succinct manner than I could ever think of. All in all, this game could appeal to casual and entry-level gamers because it's not particularly taxing to get your head around. Furthermore, it might appeal to kids as a way of introducing them to dice rolling and dice manipulation. Ultimately though, this game falls far too short. There's just not enough challenge, no real replayability, and it really lacks depth. It doesn't engross me in the slightest, really. So let's hope Elder Sign can do that a little bit better. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed that, please hit the little badingle down there that lets you subscribe to my channel. You can also reach me at my Facebook page and Instagram at Board Game Chap. What are your opinions on Bravest Warriors, and what is the best game based on Pendleton Ward's creations out there? I'd love to know. Happy gaming, and cheerio.